Figuring out where to go for new knowledge, experience, and perspective can be difficult. There are many options to consider. We'll discuss drawing on resources, where to look for them, and more on this edition of today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom. Happy Wednesday.
Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
I'm okay. A little rainy here, so it was kind of dreary looking this morning. It was one of those mornings where it was just not fun to get up.
Yeah, it can be.
You know, you power through.
And you power through, right?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, welcome everyone to today's edition of today's Antidote.
You didn't tell us how you were.
I didn't. Oh, I'm fine. Doing well.
Okay. All right, good.
Yeah.
I know our audience would want to know, and they'd feel cheated not to know how you are day to day.
Yeah, I'm doing well. You know, I've
Good.
got the
Your wife
midweek.
got back?
My wife got home safely yesterday, which was nice. It's great to have her home. And I'm dealing with the midweek. My body's a little tired. You know, lots of running up and down the cross fields. So I'm trying to take it a little bit easy and rest and do some other preventative things to help it recover. And I'll be back on the field today. So all is well. Hopefully it won't rain this afternoon.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to clear up, which is nice. And it sounds like it's supposed to get warmer a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll see. We shall see. Anyhow, welcome everyone to our daily broadcast and podcast, where we have a conversation around a topic. Our topic this week has been drawing on resources. And today we'll discuss where to find them. You know, Monday we talked about when it was necessary. Yeah, yesterday we continue that conversation a little bit, and also we're discussing why it matters. And so if you are wondering a little bit more about our topic, you can go back and listen to those or watch those 2 episodes. And we'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas, just like we'd love to hear them on this show today. Please feel free to put them in the comments if you are listening. So before we dive into our topic, though, we always start our day with our celebrations. Bob, what are you celebrating today?
I was not prepared for that today. I totally checked out. So what can I
You
celebrate?
forgot that we celebrate every morning?
I'm going to celebrate the adaptability of people, because I saw some people yesterday that adapted to a new work schedule in one of the companies I work with, and they did it gracefully, they did it efficiently, and they dealt with the unknown with great character and with great curiosity and eagerness to figure it out.
That's funny that you would say that. Mine sort of goes along those lines.
Okay.
I'm gonna celebrate the trying of new things, and sometimes what the joy that brings. So yesterday, I had 2 games in 2 different locations, so that was fun. I showed up for the second one just as they were doing the starting announcement, so that's always pleasant. But my first game was with someone who was doing their second ever game that they were officiating.
Oh,
wow. They had played the sport, and it was a varsity game, so I think they were a little nervous. And yet the person had every time I would look over to them or after a goal, they just had a big smile on their face. And they said to me how happy they were that they were able to be back out on the field. And, you know, and I think and remembering my second game, it's a daunting task. And you're kind of like, wow, this is going so fast. And what is happening? And what am I doing? And what if I make a call that my partner doesn't think makes any sense? Or I don't make a call that I should have, you know,
or the fans get mad at me.
Fortunately, the game was closer than I thought it was going to be for a while. And then one team sort of pulled away. But it was a very well played in that sticks weren't flying all over the course and all that. And yet it was just fun. You know, every time I would go to get the ball from her after a goal or something, she just had this huge smile on her face. And I was like, I'm happy that you're so happy to be out here. So that's what.
Well, and it reminds you, I'm sure, of how you felt when you started, and just that whole feeling that this is new. Because as we get comfortable with something, we forget the newness of it, the excitement of it, the awe at, look, I actually achieved it. I mean, her smile was a celebration every time, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't think
Absolutely.
we think of it that way. We're often like, well, I got here and keep moving. It sounds like she was actually taking it in and really savoring.
Either that or it was moment. Like, oh, I made it through another couple of minutes. Phew. This will all be over soon. No, I don't think that was it. I think it was more what you said. So yes, there is that giddiness, I think, that we have when we're doing something new that it's hard to recapture sometimes.
Yeah, like that childlike joy.
Yeah. And it's great when you see it in others.
Get excited the first time they see the ocean or snowflakes. Yeah. And we as adults, it's like, I've seen snowflakes a million times. They're a pain. It means I have to deal with work issues and shoveling. But when you see a kid react to it. And I think that childlike quality is something that we lose a lot, especially if we're leaders or business owners. We get so wrapped up in moving forward that we don't take that time to really have that childlike joy. And I think that's part of why you and I really encourage the celebrations.
Absolutely.
To make that connection to that early phase.
Yeah.
So
what are you sharing with our Renegade today?
Well, today, the national day from the National Day calendar is National Walking Day. And I want to spin this a little differently, because I have found that when I go for walks with people, whether it's personal or whether it's business, incredible things happen. I don't know what it is about walking and talking, but it is when, if you need to get someone to open up about something that they're not really sharing about, walking a mile, 2 miles with them will make a big difference. I've seen it with people that I thought I knew really well, and I go for a walk with them and we get into a discussion. I've debated things. I used to do my weekly meetings with employees at one job. We'd walk around the building outside because we were at desks all day and it drove me crazy. And at first they didn't like it, but over time they came to appreciate it. And I noticed that there was an openness. And my theory is that when you're walking, you're distracted from focusing solely on what's going on in your head. So you're a little freer, a little looser, a little more open to information, both giving it and receiving it. So I'm a big fan of walking and talking, but not chewing gum at the same time. Can't do that. I can walk.
You can't walk, talk, and chew gum at the same time. One extra thing is too much for you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just asking, that's all.
So are you someone who likes to walk and talk to people, or no?
I don't mind it. I haven't done it. I mean, I've done it obviously a lot.
Okay.
And at the same time, I kind of sometimes like to walk by myself.
Okay. And I enjoy that as well. Yeah.
And being in my own head a little bit, or not, or just being out of it. So I do remember once I had a walking meeting that we actually scheduled a walking meeting around, I think it was around campus. And I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't really sure what I would think about it. It was someone I didn't know very well. And so I thought that was an interesting way to connect and engage. And, there were other things to talk about as well as you go through that.
It's also a shared experience, right?
Absolutely. It can also be
if you see a hawk, both of you see the hawk, and now you have a shared opportunity to be like, oh yeah, we saw a hawk when we were walking today.
Yeah. I think the one challenge that I always thought about with that was the distractions that could come in. You run into somebody else.
Because there isn't a distraction when you're in a meeting in an office? Really? You haven't seen one of these in a meeting lately?
Well, yes.
For the podcast folks, I just held up my cell phone.
Yes. Although many people tell people they have to put their cell phones either away or I've seen a meeting where you have to put them in the middle of the room or the middle of the table, and then nobody can touch them. Which I think depending on the meeting, that makes a lot of sense. Because
it also induces great stress among people.
Certainly.
No, I'm away from my phone. What if?
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a great celebrations and something to share with our renegades out there. So let's dive into our topic a little bit. As we mentioned, it's about drawing on resources. And I think this is an interesting topic. And there was a poll that you put up in the Ring of Renegades Facebook group about how often do we ask for help, which I thought was an interesting way to phrase it. And I think help is a resource.
Mhm.
And I think that there are other resources that we also ask others for that are as valuable as their help. So let's hear some of your thoughts about where to ask when you need to draw on other resources.
Well, I'm going to take a big step back because I listened to our podcast yesterday in the afternoon, and I kind of realized something that I hadn't put together. We're using the phrase drawing on, which means pulling in, not waiting for resources to show up, not expecting people to bring us resources, but we are drawing on them, which means we are taking the active role to get them to be part of what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that's a really important part of this that we have to keep in mind. The cavalry is not going to come most likely unless you put up your hand and go, hey, I need some help over here. Or, hey, do you know how to do this? And I think when we think about where we can look, it's anywhere and everywhere. I'm a firm believer now of casting a really wide net. And I'll tell you why. Back when I was a journalist years ago, if you wanted to do a story about, I don't know, someone who played wiffle ball, because I wrote a story one time about wiffle ball. I got fascinated by that. I ran into some kids who were playing like pre-competitive wiffle ball. And I talked to them and I'm like, hey, where do you guys play? And they're like, oh, there's this place up the road. I looked all over, couldn't find it. I started to ask people all about this wiffle ball place because I heard it was a stadium. I'm like, what the heck? Took me almost a year of asking everyone. Every time someone told me they lived in this area, I'd be like, you don't know about a wiffle ball stadium? No. Turns out I was talking to a volunteer firefighter one day at a banquet. And I'm chatting with him. He's like, oh, what are some of the stories you're working on? I'm like, I've been working on this wiffle ball story for years. I can't find the stadium. He's like, I know exactly where it is. You want me to show you? Yeah, sure. That'd be great. So literally we leave the fire banquet to go see this location. I wouldn't have thought to ask the firefighter that. Prior to that time, it was the firehouse was within probably 2 miles of the location. And I was just casting the widest possible net. And I think that's something I would encourage. That's probably going to be my today's antidote. Yeah, out of the gate early today, which is cast a wide net. You don't know who knows who, or you don't know who knows what. I've had people say to me, I've struggled to write this book. And I finally figured it out. And I'm like, I've written a couple books. I've helped people write books. You didn't. I didn't think to ask you. Like, that happens all the time. We say that all the time. And I think we can shorten the learning curve and accelerate our progress by asking more people just, hey, do you know someone that does this? Do you know someone that does that? And that's one of the things in our Renegade Success Network and with our Ring of Renegades Facebook group that we've really been working hard to build is that network that you can go to and say, I don't know this thing. Help me, please. Or I feel like I'm the only person in the world who asks for help. But if you go to our Ring of Renegades Facebook group and look at that poll today, you would not be alone. You would be in good company. And I think that's one of the things we have to get over in our head is we don't ask for the resources that are out there because we're afraid. What do you think?
Maybe, or we just haven't considered that perspective. I think that it's that sometimes it's more than being afraid to ask. It's might be I hadn't considered that this might be an area that I could get help. Again, is one of the resources it could be. As I was thinking about that and gathering other resources, sometimes is help. Sometimes it's just their insight. Sometimes it's actually their physical help because you just can't do something by yourself alone. And so I think that that's one of the things I would share in this regard is, don't always think that you're asking for help. Asking for insights, asking for their thoughts, asking for their perspective is a way of asking for help. It's saying, hey, you know what? I don't have all the knowledge, experience, and perspective I could get. And not that I need your help. What I need is, or what I'd like to hear is your knowledge, experience, and perspective on this situation. I do this a lot in lacrosse, because there's video on games and you watch things and you think about plays that you had or scenarios or situations. And at that point, I don't need anybody's help. The play's already happened. What is helpful is drawing on their knowledge, experience, and perspective to, again, not judge the actions that I took, more to as a way for me to help me learn so that I'm better prepared the next time I'm in that situation. And I think that that's, one of those things that I think we just sometimes don't consider, and I think that it's not necessarily just that we're scared. I think we don't know where to look. And as you said, I think when we start to broaden that and consider that we could get it anywhere, and usually sometimes in the most unlikely places. Like, who'd have thought that you sitting at a banquet next to some person that you're talking to, they would have the solution. They'd have the knowledge, experience, and perspective to help you, to provide you with that knowledge, experience, and perspective you didn't have. And so I think, that's the piece of it, is that another piece of it is that we hadn't considered that this might be an option. And I think that's a lot of times that we don't share our own knowledge, experience, and perspective because we either believe someone else already has it, or that nobody really cares or needs it. When in reality, if we share because our perspective is unique and what's real for us is not always real for others. So even in sharing what is real for us could have some impact on someone else. And I think that's, to me, one of the big pieces of this is the value of drawing on others and at the same time sharing what we have. Because I think that's often sometimes forgotten as well. And that could probably be a whole other discussion, is not only how do we gather more resources, how do we share the resources that we currently have with others so that they, who may not be thinking we have that insight, and again, that goes back to your point about the book. Maybe the person didn't ask because they weren't certain that you would want to do that.
They had no idea. They had no idea I'd written a book. They told me.
Okay. The other thing,
fine. I mean,
sure.
I don't expect.
Well, I think
I don't put it on my forehead yet. I'm working on the tattoo once I get it worked out.
Well, the other point is that we share the resources that we have so that others are aware. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the piece that sometimes we forget about, is that, if somebody isn't asking us for something that they might need help with because they're not sure that this is part of our skill set, that means we haven't shared enough. Right. So that they are not aware that we might be able to help them in this regard, because likely some of those things that they might be considering are outside their knowledge, experience, and perspective of us. If somebody had never met you, or somebody's watching this show for the first time and you hadn't mentioned, they might be like, well, Bob's on here talking about business. How would I have ever known that he wrote a book on soft skills, or that he helped others write books on various topics? And I think, that sort of falls into the category of how do we, it's funny, as I shared on Monday, one of the ways I think about this is with my dad driving was like the first thing that came to my mind when we talked about this, is not being willing to ask for directions when he needs it. And so I was just thinking about, well, if I was a gas station out in the middle of nowhere and a lot of people came and asked for directions, why not? Maybe you should put a sign up that says directions available here. So if somebody, so when someone who is looking in, well, nobody in the gas station will know. You could say like, oh, wow, hey, they actually have what I'm looking for. I'll stop in here. And while I'm doing that, I might also pick up a drink or a snack or buy some gas. And I think that's the thing that when we start sharing that, sorry, I'm diving into that other topic. Others have the opportunity to understand this is what we do and how might they draw on our knowledge.
I have a hunch we're going to go into sharing with others in a coming week. I'm just guessing. So Tom, what's your one thing? Mine was to cast a wide net.
Yeah, I think my one thing is, where to look. I don't want to say exactly what you said, but that was what I was thinking of, is that I would almost say look in the unexpected areas.
Okay.
If you're with somebody who you're like, you got this burning thing in your head, why not ask? Because even if they don't have it, they might know someone else who does. And I think so often we go to the obvious source, potential source. And I think sometimes when we do that, we get sort of the obvious answer that we likely would have come up with ourselves or had already tried. When we go to the unique source, we're going to get very different knowledge, experience, and perspective. And I think sometimes that can be more valuable because those areas, books, things are looking at it from a different perspective, not from the traditional, I have this question about leading teams. Well, let me go to an expert on leading teams or pick up a book. And likely, if I've led teams for a while, 3/4 of that information is going to be about something I've probably already thought about. But if I go to someone completely different and ask them their perspective, it's like when you bring all peoples of the organization into a meeting. I used to love to bring in our administrative assistant to meetings because they had a very different perspective on things. And so often they would provide resources that none of the rest of us had thought about because we were in the middle of it. So I guess that's my one thing is I would say, if you're really stuck and you can't find it, go to some unique resource and just ask and see what they might be able to share, either from their knowledge, experience, and perspective, or someone else's who they know.
I like it. All right. Well, folks, we'd love to see your comments. What's your one thing today? It can be related to our topic. It can be some epiphany you had while we were speaking about whatever. We just like to see. It's an opportunity to share what you've discovered and also to let other people understand what you've discovered. And hint, hint, someone might actually see your comment and go, I want to follow up with that person. And perhaps you might network and have a new contact by the end of the day or week.
Yeah, I like that. I was just thinking about that. One of the things sometimes we don't draw on the resources we have because we don't know what resources someone else has. And maybe this is something I'll post in our Ring of Renegades Facebook group is, what is that unique thing that you have knowledge of, experience with, or a perspective on that people wouldn't expect might come from you? And that might be a great way for others who thought, well, I never would have thought to ask Bob about writing a book or playing the guitar. Who would have not known that Bob likes to play the guitar? And maybe he might have some insight that's a little different than somebody like one of our other members, Chris Malcamo, who plays music all the time. And there's always, you would clearly know that he's a guitar player if you saw his website. And he can offer one perspective. And yet there are others out there who, especially for the new person, might be looking for just what Bob has to offer about playing guitars.
I like that. I don't know what I could offer that would be useful, but you never know.
Well, you might know something that someone else doesn't.
Yes.
That Chris, because he's further down the road, wouldn't think about for someone who's brand new, because he's now at the point where he can probably hardly remember the first time. He probably remembers the first time, but he probably doesn't remember the 30th time he picked up a guitar to play it. So, all right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. If you have thoughts you'd like to share, please feel free to put them in the comments, as Bob said, or you can share them inside our Ring of Renegades Facebook group. We would love to see you there and join our growing community. We're helping renegades take their next step along their own unique pathway to success. So we look forward to seeing you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, for our next edition of today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, embrace the renegading you and ask someone to go for a walk. See what happens.
Just maybe not this morning if you live in Baltimore because it is raining.
I love to walk in the rain.
Oh, all right. Fair enough. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for listening to today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.